welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Lone Wolf Howlcast, howling out for logic and reason in a world filled with bananas. And Magnus can do no wrong. So, Tiral, what are we talking about this week?
Wait, you can't start with Magnus can do no wrong.
Yes, I can. It's my show.
We're gonna derail the pop culture, podcast with 40K already.
That's a deep. Actually, you know what? We are going to talk a little 40K, real quick. Henry Cavill has posted up some more info on Twitter about what a super fan he is. Posted up I'll put this in the comments, but he posted up a picture from the set of The Witcher where it's him in the whole Witcher getup with a robe on, and it says hashtag this could be 40K, hashtag Neoth, hashtag obscure Warhammer reference. So,
he just called himself the Emperor.
Yeah, there's always been that meme going around forever of his face photoshopped onto the Emperor's armor,
I would say it would make sense. That would be a good casting. Also because Henry Cavill is horrible playing good guys, but amazing playing bad guys. Like it doesn't make sense for him to play any Superman. He was so good being the evil spy in Mission Impossible. He's so good as Geralt in The Witcher, because Geralt is not like the greatest guy in the world.
Right. He's an anti-hero, I think is what we'd call that.
Either an anti-hero or villain, and the Emperor of Mankind fits both.
But how would you even start a 40K movie? I guess you'd have to start with the Horus Heresy to loop in as many new fans as you possibly could before you even jump into anything else. Like the Indomitus Crusade, you couldn't start there, and new fans would have no idea who the hell you're talking about,
I'm going to disagree. I think we would do it the way Games Workshop did it. Start with 40K and then go back to 30K.
They started with 40K because they invented 40K in like 1985, and it wasn't even called 40K. It was Rogue Trader.
True.
And then it got turned into 40K, which Warhammer 40,000 second edition was really Rogue Trader second edition. And then this is how much of a nerd I am about this stuff. The whole Horus Heresy was a sidebar blurb in one of the early issues of White Dwarf magazine, which is now the Games Workshop physical publication vehicle to sell their product. It used to be a multi-platform gaming magazine, and then they started cutting out some of the other stuff and made it exclusively about their own stuff. And the Horus Heresy was just really like a half a paragraph sidebar blurb, and I think they finally got their timelines together and did their whole flow chart of how the story was going to go. And then I'm just taking a guess here, folks, and I might be wrong, but I think the Horus Heresy books started in 2010, maybe? And then
I think earlier. Maybe earlier.
So let's say 2005, and Games Workshop Warhammer 40K started in 85, so it took them 20 years to get the books together. That's not horrible considering they had to flesh it out, decide to do it, then make it the ginormo project that it is. It started in 40K, but like this whole phenomena of the Horus Heresy spun out of literally a sidebar blurb to explain why the Emperor was on the Golden Throne. I think in order to wrap in as many new fans to the product as they possibly could, they would have to start with like a prequel even to Horus Rising, which is the first book in the Horus Heresy publication series, and give us, maybe the Emperor. Go ahead. What are you going to say, Terrell?
I think you changed my mind, because now that I'm thinking of it as a movie or a movie series, the 40K universe doesn't have as many strong personalities and leads. Like the drama isn't as easy as 30K, where you have the Emperor alive and you have the 12 kids, and
12 kids. Dude, 20. You're fired.
20,
21, 18 about. 21. I guess 21 maybe if you count Alfarius and Omegon as two.
Yeah, 21. There's a more theatrical element to it, and we can cast people and the drama. It could be like a Marvel shared universe kind of thing.
MCU style with green screen everywhere and like 99% CGI. You'd have to.
Yeah.
Because The Astartes, your average Astartes is like 8 feet tall out of his armor, and then like 8.5 to 9 feet tall in the armor, and then a Primarch is anywhere between 10 to 15 feet tall, and if you're freaking Magnus, nobody knows his true dimensions. If you're the Emperor, nobody knows his true dimensions either. And it would appeal to everybody because, spoiler alert here, folks, because it only came out in like the last 2 or 3 books in the Siege of Terra series, that the Primarchs now have a mommy, because of course they have to have a mommy. Can't just have a daddy anymore. There's got to be a mommy too. There'd be that character, which also, in the most recent book, her dimensions shift wildly when she has a fight with a particular character that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm not going to say who, because that's cutting edge info. That's in the latest book. So I'm not going to drop that here, at risk of spoiling it.
At the end, I think you're right. I take back, 40K isn't the place to start. You would have to start with pre-30K and build up these characters and kind of do the Marvel thing.
Or
one
even
movie.
start it with a prologue of the Emperor at work in his labs with all these super special, powerful people and his right-hand man in Malkador, working on some shadowy projects in these labs, and then go from there. And then boom, we're into the Horus Heresy, the Crusade.
Lone Wolf, this kind of is a great segue to our podcast. Maybe we should just leave 40K alone, because after seeing what they did to my baby Cowboy Bebop, maybe we should just take what we got and be happy.
Well, even if they do, all right, last comment. Maybe if they do it as CGI, if they let the guy whose name, it's a Russian name, I mess it up all the time, but I will definitely link him correctly in the comments. The guy who did the Astartes mini shorts, Sodaz, and then the other guy who did Helsreach, if they actually let them do something instead of just hiring them to shut them up, maybe do the Horus Heresy as a full CGI series.
Yes, for the first 2, but the community was so toxic to the guy who made Helsreach, he's never touching 40K again.
But he was hired. I thought he was picked up by GW.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was burnt from the community.
I thought Sodaz got burned, not the guy for Helsreach. I thought Sodaz got a lot of flack.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I got it backwards. No, you're right.
I thought he got a lot of flack for selling out the GW, but it's like, why would you think this guy is selling? He's not selling out. He literally got bought in by the company whose work he was emulating, and he was so damn good. They wanted to pay him to do exactly that, but for them, and get a paycheck out of the deal.
No, you're right. I was wrong.
It's like basketball players, man. When they get drafted into the NBA, they're such sellouts. It makes no sense. Keep playing playing that street ball on the corner, man. Stay true to your roots. That's stupid.
I want to talk about Cowboy Bebop now, because
All right. So definitely, this was Tiral's subject tonight, and I've derailed the entire conversation. So go ahead, take it away, Tiral.
Let's review Cowboy Bebop. And me and you, we had a viewing party, and we didn't make it past halfway through till 4 out of 6 people voted to stop. And I kind of had a couple hours later, force us to finish the episode. It was that poorly received. That's episode 1. It was so poorly received. Have you seen anything?
We were watching it with some serious purists.
Artists. 2 artists.
Right.
Me and you.
And the other guy, he's been a guest on our show a couple times as Mr. Bond. He was there as well. And he was, I think, more of a purist about it than the other 2 artists that were there. But yeah, so continue.
It was not received well by all of us. The first episode. I can't remember seeing something where the first episode was such a bad impression. I've pushed through it just for the podcast, honestly. I watched the whole thing. Did you see the rest, or did you just forget it?
No, I have to admit, I've been working on season 5 of The Expanse. Narcos season 3 is queued up next. And then after that, I'm going to be hitting Lost in Space season 3, which there's something I want to say about that. But at the end, I don't want to derail this conversation again, which I'm really good at. It's a bad character trait.
Well, let's talk about that stuff after.
I kind of haven't, in deference and respect of our artist friend who originally started critiquing the show. I don't want to, like us, you and me, start talking about it accidentally in front of him, and then he flies off on a tirade.
Yeah, and it turned out well deserved tirade. He was
Yeah.
right. He was right before seeing a single episode. It was pretty done. Here's my critique of Cowboy Bebop: seeing the whole thing, listening to other people's criticisms and views, both lovers and haters. There's more haters than lovers, but I guess some people want to be contrarian and say like, "Oh no, everyone else is wrong. This is great."
Now, let me guess, it's the woke culture freaking out about how good it is and everybody else is wrong, right? Of course it is.
No, not really. The woke culture was not. It was kind of muted, actually, to be honest. Politically, I think because the Cowboy Bebop show transcended politics, that it never really. It was not one of these fan reactions that was divided by political stances. I think most of it was really dead honest. The first 5 episodes sucked. The first 3 episodes sucked so bad that like I don't, without seeing the viewership numbers, because Netflix hasn't disclosed it. I don't know if people made it past third episode, and it's a 10 episode, or I think show 10 or 8, but no 10. It was the first 3 episodes were so poorly made and so poorly done. By the episode where it was just a Jet episode where we go into Jet's life as a cop, that was the first episode that was not horrible. That was okay. And it was then after that, you kind of got the sense that maybe the director and the actors and everybody involved in the show got their sea legs, like they started to figure things out. But I just don't know how people would sit through so much suck to get to like, oh, okay, we figured it out a little bit. Not a lot, a little bit. I think because of the way Netflix is structured, it's going to get a second season, but it really is a poor product 80% of the time. And I don't know if that's sustainable.
So let's talk about just episode 1, because that's the one we did watch together. I have some observations on that, but clearly you
Go for it.
Okay, I figured I'd let you go first since you did much more of a deep dive than I did.
No, go
I'll
for
go
it.
first. So first of all, big issues right on the nose is Spike Spiegel is a white guy, and with a last name like Spiegel, he's most likely a person of Jewish descent, let's say.
Or
He's not,
German, yeah, German Jewish, yeah.
is not Asian by any stretch of the imagination. Jet is also a white guy, although I think that's been debatable because he's drawn, to me, he looks like he's drawn like a black guy. Like he has features and dimensions of possibly a black dude. But I've argued down that that's not the case, that he's definitely a white guy.
So it's canonically a white guy with a tan, but the American voice actor was a black guy. So
Right,
to American audiences,
if we're
he
sticking
was
true
a,
to the source material, then he should have been a white guy.
if we go with the Japanese version, he's a tanned white person. If we go with the American version, he's definitely a black person.
And then first episode again, it feels like the actor playing Jet is really like overcompensating, like all of his lines. Spike, you were supposed to wait for me. You know, stuff like that.
Right.
Like
Well, he was the only one that got it. He's the only one in that show, the actor. If we watch the American dubbed version, you think Jet is a African American man. If you listen to the Japanese version with subtitles, he's a white person. But the actor who plays him, by far from everyone else, understands the show he's in and the world he's in, and he is, like you said, overcompensating for everyone else. The actor who played Jet is the only one that I can't shit on.
And then in comes Faye Valentine with blue hair, and although she's wearing clothing that is similarly colored to what she wears in the anime, it's nothing like the original outfit that they meet Faye in. Meanwhile, by the way, Spike's and Jet's outfits, I think, were pretty damn close to the source material. Mm-hmm. But Faye is buttoned up from her neck to her toes. Mm-hmm. And was wearing nothing like what she's wearing in the anime whatsoever. And from what I understand, she gets introduced way too early. But of course, right, they got to balance out the strong male leads with the strong female lead. They can't have her lingering as a support character.
It was pretty clear that some executive notes that she has to be in the first episode. It was just really clear.
That's it.
Yeah, like she was shoehorned in the worst possible way.
this show is woke because, of course, they have to introduce Faye Valentine in episode 1 as a main character instead of down the line as a support character, which is what she really is in the anime. And instead of showing a lot of skin like she does in the anime, they got her buttoned up from her neck to her toes. So it's not even the same character. And she has short blue hair instead of long black hair. End of rant. There you go. Is that better?
So while all of us were watching the show together, we were cutting to these issues in pieces. But when you add everything together, all the things that went wrong, you realize it's a tonality issue. The tone of the show is absolutely not what it needed to be. And they got it wrong. And that's something that, like, when I was watching the entire show, I kept trying to understand, where did it all go bad? Like, how did all these different things keep going the wrong way? Like, artistic decisions keep going the wrong way. I mean, personally, I don't need 100% fidelity. I think if an artist has a property and he's converting it to a different, they have a right to put their own artistic slant on things.
Or even give the thumbs up to the studio, like Game of Thrones, right? The first couple seasons deviated a little bit from the books, but George Jar Jar Martin, gave the thumbs up to do that. We can bitch and moan as fans, but ultimately he's got the right to do that because it's his IP.
Right. I think every artist or our group of artists has the right to reinterpret what they're doing. We don't, as viewers, we don't necessarily have to appreciate their decisions, but we should allow people the flexibility to put their own stamp on things. So the issue isn't that they changed the story. The issue isn't that they changed the characters, let's say with Faye, or let's say with Spike. The real issue is they try to have things both ways. They try to make changes and have the same story. It doesn't make sense. Spike Spiegel is older. He's an executioner. Spike Spiegel in NetFlix kills people. Like, not in the last resort. I mean, John Wick style kills people.
Right. Yep.
He's a bigger a-hole. He's not a good person. I mean, he's clearly a different character being played by a 50-year-old actor. Faye Valentine, that's not Faye Valentine. That's another original character. Faye Valentine was a sultry con woman who had a horrible personality and
she
lived.
was a seductress.
Yeah, and she lived off of her cleverness, and she had a backstory where, she doesn't know her past. She had a gambling addiction. There was all these things. This person with the name Faye Valentine is very common, spunky, sassy, lesbian, boss girl, not particularly charming or funny or
Right.
well acted or attractive. But you keep calling her Faye, and you gave her Faye Valentine's story arcs. So you have Spike, who's very different, but you're making him go through the same story as the anime. You have someone named Faye Valentine who's not Faye Valentine, but we have to pretend she is. And it's just this dissonance that was horrible. Even Jet, who's the only casting that made sense, the actor really played Jet well. But this Jet has a family. He has an ex-wife. He has a daughter. He has people to live for. He's not depressed. He's bossy. So this is not the same Jet as we had before, but the story doesn't force him to play the same Jet, because we have episodes where, he meets his daughter, he tries to be there for her recital, things like that, and he actually lives his life like, okay, I'm a dad, I need to be there for my daughter. Whereas with Jet, they made changes and then they made the story reflect those changes. With Spike and Faye, they made all these changes and then forced the viewer to watch the same story. And it doesn't make sense and it doesn't feel earned. And they character assassinated Faye Valentine as far as I care. And Spike is, I'm going to say spoiler alert. I doubt very many people need this alert because I don't think people are going to go watch the end of this series.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't see most people watching past 3 episodes. At the end, you find out that Spike Spiegel has so much plot armor that no matter how many times you shoot him with bullets or anything happens to him, he just survives. So Spike gets shot in the church scene and is back, and he just like nothing ever happened. And then he gets shot again through the window by Julia, and he falls like this crazy, crazy high distance from the church. And like literally 2 minutes later, we see him walking up. And it was like one of the stupidest. I can't believe how bad the last episode was. It was so shitty. It was just like, wow, I can't get that life back, that hour of my life back. You know? And at the end, the show started to feel like as if everyone started to click, like understand their roles, and the director started to understand a little bit more. The action was a little bit better. You know, so by the end, when it shit the bed, you're just like, oh.
Hey, maybe
And it
I
really,
misunderstood this earlier, but when we were talking about this offline like a week or two ago, wasn't Taika Waititi involved with this?
no.
No, okay. I don't know why I was thinking that. Anyway, continue.
If he was, oh my God. Here's the things that consistently were good: the backgrounds, the cinematography, and that's it. They screwed up with the music. It was a Cowboy Bebop movie that messed up the music. Overused it, didn't understand to use it. There's multiple characters that were reinterpreted, and none of it was better for the better. I'm trying to think of what other good things were there. There's very little good. Like I said, it was 80% bad, 20% good. You know, like there was the original Cowboy Bebop was actually very transgressive. There was transsexual characters that was really important. Every world had multicultural diversity. There are young people, old people. Every world felt lived in. There was a lot of things about the original Cowboy Bebop, politically speaking, that was pretty, like, not extreme, but controversial. Maybe we don't think it's controversial now, but at that time, there were. Remember how you're asking, like, oh, I bet the woke brigade loved this and said, no, this is really great. And actually, they didn't, because one of the best first side characters that was trans was in Cowboy Bebop, and they reinterpreted this character to be like the bartender slash club manager, and they obviously flamboyantly gay character. It went from a very complicated transsexual man or woman, that's, you know, depending, to this very cookie cutter gay club manager dude. And so they destroyed one of the most like important, I don't want to say most important, but one of the most like controversial things about Cowboy Bebop. So even if they were going for the woke audience, they failed at it because they screwed up a literal character that was important to the movement. I came to the conclusion Cowboy Bebop was a love letter to music, to westerns, and many, many western influences by the creator of the show, with a dash of Bushido and Japanese culture. And you put this all together and you came up with brilliance. The American Cowboy Bebop was made by people who didn't understand westerns. It's almost like as they're trying to Xerox a Xerox, but like if you don't like, understand westerns and American culture, and you are trying to translate a love letter to westerns, sci-fi, American culture, American music, jazz, so on and so forth, it's all screwy. They got the wrong people in charge of this. Cowboy Bebop is a western in space,
Yeah.
and they didn't understand that. Fundamentally, they just didn't understand what they were dealing with. And instead, what they thought was another Joss Whedon, Buffy the Vampire type thing, where like, oh, you got these characters and they all love each other and they are a family and they say sassy things and sassy jokes, and that's not what the show was. And it's the show is brutally unfunny. The dialogue is just incredibly bad, to the point where like someone did like they set one of the scenes where the three of them are talking at a diner and they made it to Seinfeld, and you just and you realize, oh my god, this is really badly written. these characters are horrible. They don't make any sense. They're not funny. Everything is forced. It's hard not to call everything a fail. I feel that if the show was in the hands of people who understood that, hey, we're doing a Western, it just so happens that this is a Western in space. If you reinterpreted the characters and just went with it, like lean on it. This Spike Spiegel is not a young guy. This is an older 50-year-old Spike Spiegel who kills people with no hesitation. Roll
Mhm.
with that. Just go with it. Okay, you got this girl who's obviously not Faye Valentine. Don't call her Faye Valentine. Just call her something else and roll with it. Other than like the backgrounds and graphics and cinematography, it's hard to think of anything good that this show did. And it's just, I don't know, man.
Tiral, you've convinced me not to even bother watching it further, just to give it a shot.
Like
I don't think I even want to take the time.
they ruined Vicious character. They ruined Julia. They ruined Faye. I kind of got used to Spike, John Cho Spike. I
Mhm.
just wish the story reflected it. They ruined most of the side characters and villains that the original show had. I gotta say, man,
Well, I'm going
it's
to give it. Oh,
really
sorry, go ahead. I
weird.
cut you off. Go ahead, Tiral.
The lack of people talking about Cowboy Bebop is kind of indicative of like how bad the show was. Because it wasn't bad enough for people to like fight for it or there to be controversy. The fandom just looked at it and it was like, this is crap. We're not talking about it. And if you're not a fan, because you know how I said that they forced the show to follow the anime, but because the show is so much worse, episode to episode doesn't make sense. So if you had no idea what Cowboy Bebop was and you tried to watch the show, what went on from episode 1 to episode 2 doesn't make any sense. 2 to 3 doesn't make any sense because without the context of being a fan of the original, nothing. There's nothing there. So one episode, you went literally. This is honest to God truth. You went from Faye basically barging herself into the ship, and Spike, this very angry, very militant Spike, pointing a gun to her head, not trusting her. To next episode, Spike and Jet surprise Faye at a bowling alley with a birthday celebration.
Holy crap. Not really not
That,
watching it because that makes zero sense.
that was literally episode. There was 2 episodes, one after another. Imagine if you never knew the show, if you never watched Cowboy Bebop, you just just watching this. Oh, everyone's talking about this show. Let me watch it, and that's what you saw. It's really bizarre and quite sad because it's one of the most beloved pieces of our modern art. I don't think they ruined it, because you always have the anime. The anime holds up on its own. You want it to be successful. You wanted it to be great. You wanted to enjoy it, but it's not like that. Yeah, and also like the Japan, like the response in Japan was been very, very mixed. There was a few people, like a few portion that liked it, but the vast majority of the Japanese were like very confused. They didn't understand like what was going on.
Well, with that in mind, I'm going to segue real quick because we're kind of hitting that mark. But back to our 40K references and with casting people in the right role. So this is kind of the opposite of what's happening with Cowboy Bebop, that they completely race swapped cast instead of staying true to the source material. Is that Henry Cavill posted up, I think, on his Twitter, a picture of himself on the set of Witcher in the full makeup, contact lenses and costuming. And I think I'd have to find it and post a link to it because I'm not going to be able to get it verbatim. I'm going to have to paraphrase here. But he said something along the lines of he thinks he looks like the Emperor, hashtag Warhammer 40K, hashtag Neoth, hashtag obscure Warhammer reference. And there's always been, like for the past couple of years now, there's been the memes floating around of Cavill playing the Emperor, which would be pretty damn cool, especially if you get a guy who's got the chiseled features to pull off the part and who's familiar with the lore, probably, and not a passing familiarity. To drop a name like that, I'm not going to say who it is because that's still relatively new in the lore, but to drop that name and know what it means, you got to have pretty deep understanding of the lore. And he plays the tabletop. He plays the Legio Custodes, which is pretty freaking sick too.
And he he can make a barbarian look. You know, he looks like a barbarian.
What's the significance of the barbarian look?
Well, because the emperor, he was a barbarian king, made from shamans. So
If we stick to the OG lore, he was created out of nothing by all the shamans of the earth coming together and giving up their essence to create this being that is the emperor. OG lore, and then he became a king. I don't know if it happened overnight, but he pretty much became an instant conqueror.
You can't have someone clean cut and someone heroic be the emperor. It's got to be someone with an edge that like you just question and be like,
he has to have stubble.
He's got to have stubble. Yeah, like so. I mean, I think I after the whole Cowboy Bebop experience, I say, please just leave it alone. Like, can we not? Even the MCU, man, the MCU is sputtering pretty badly. Even the MCU like formula is not quite working out.
I have to disagree with that a little bit. The Hawkeye series is pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's good. No one's watching it.
Because they introduced a female lead, that Hawkeye's past experience and exploits were going to be swept under the rug, and all of a sudden he was going to have a level of ignorance or incompetence that he needed her in order to overcome and succeed. And that's not the case. He's still Hawkeye. He's still awesome at what he does. And instead of him being the white male, in the back seat to the female lead, he's becoming this person's mentor, which I thought was pretty cool. A reluctant mentor at first, but it's clear that's the way the series is going to go. I have to say the Hawkeye miniseries is a definite watch.
I wasn't questioning the quality. I was saying people aren't watching it. That was something I learned about today, that the ratings for Hawkeye have been very poor. People aren't interested, even though the quality is pretty good. The next Spider-Man movie is supposed to be a downer, and they're starting to get scared that they might have went the wrong way with it.
Which movie?
No Way Home.
That looks pretty cool, and it looks like it's going to be above the average showing and pandering to your average fan, where it's linear and explained every step of the way for you, because they're breaking through different realities with this, which I think is a very cool bend to take with this. And from the preview, from the trailer rather, it looks like Doc Ock becomes a good guy, or at least not a villain. In some of I think there's, I don't know if it was the teaser trailer or the first main trailer for No Way Home, but it's clear that there's scenes where Doc Ock is helping this universe's Peter Parker with some stuff.
Anything I know I want to see, I don't watch the trailer, but I'm just
spoiler alert. It's a trailer. Too bad.
Yeah, no, you don't have to say spoiler alert for a trailer, but I mean, I have misgivings that even the MCU's formula is starting to stop working.
Yeah, that remains to be seen if their formula is starting to fall down. We'll see what the next big round of movies look like and what the response is to that. But let's call it quits here. We're starting to ramble on about random stuff anyway. So once again, folks, thanks for joining us. As we always request, please like and subscribe and continue the conversation in the comments.
Have a good one.